Uh, so I'm kind of counting on all of you to participate in that. I'll be really grateful for that. We're in lesson 7, and we've been talking about the rebukes of Jesus. Jesus, the rebukes that he handed out to people while he was on the earth, dealing not only with the apostles, but the people he's come in contact with. Now, rebuke is a word that's kind of fallen out of use in our modern language. I can't remember the last time anybody told me that, they were rebuking me for something. My boss has never called me in the office and said, I'm going to rebuke you for this. So it's one of those words that we don't use very often. So I thought I would start out by just looking at a simple definition of the word rebuke. And it is simply to express sharp disapproval or criticism of someone because of their actions or behavior. I thought that was a pretty good definition. Pretty much defines the word the way I understand it. Now, I know a lot of the stuff that we do may seem repetitious, but and I'm hoping that it's not dry and unuseful or boring. But one thing I have to bear in mind when we have our classes, since we stream the class, and if there happens to be anybody watching, you want to make sure that you don't leave them feeling like they came into the middle of the discussion and they don't have the first part of it. So I'm not going to go back and redo what we talked about last week, or at least the part of the lesson, but we're still on the same topic of the rebukes of Jesus. So we're going to pick up there. And a thought occurred to me while I was doing this, putting my lesson together. Does a rebuke, and I thought I would just ask this question, throw it out there, does a rebuke involve judging? Anybody?
Well, I think by your definition, I agree with that. It's more than a mere disagreement. So I think from there, we have to go to the next stage.
And I think in the Greek language they have, I'm a rank amateur when it comes to Greek language. But one of the things I have noticed about what I do know about Greek language is they have a very good way of making something like, let's say for example, the word love. In the Greek language, there are 3 different words for that. So they have a good way of stratifying things. And I think rebuke is kind of like that. It's more than just a mere disagreement or correction. I think it's a little more forceful rebuttal of something. Tony?
See, and I look at it also as it's maybe not always a bad thing. It's how you take it. It can be as a learning tool as well.
That is true. And I think, to kind of add to that, I think in order for us to be successful as Christians, we are going to have to be able to not only handle rebukes, but to embrace them for what they are. None of us lead perfect lives. And from time to time, maybe not so much now, but I can certainly say in my younger life, rebuke was kind of a constant companion. And, you can always handle those things in one of 2 ways. You can either, see it as an opportunity to correct the problem and try to get better, or you can just rebel against it. We see both of those things play out. You see some people who you can tell them something that they're doing wrong, and they'll appreciate it and make correction and try to be better. And then you have those who will be offended, whatever negative emotion pops into them. I mean, like I said, you see both of those. And I thought I thought it was interesting, because if we say that a rebuke does involve judging, I think it does. Because you have to, when you're rebuking somebody, and we use it, and I'm talking about in the sense of God's standard, the Bible. We are confronting, or maybe we are being confronted by the truth of the gospel. And that's the rebuke. So it does involve that. But then how do we reconcile it with the passage that we find over in Matthew chapter 7? Judge not that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Any ideas on that? Yes?
Sounds like you're saying, don't tell me what to do, you're doing the same thing, but I ain't talking about it back.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's saying. And I think, and a lot of people, this used to be like cards. If you ever played the trump card or the rook card, the red one, whatever. A lot of times when I know growing up when I got, and even now, when you get a discussion with people that involves applying the standard, well, instead of really looking at what the standard says, most people don't judge me, don't judge me, you're judging. But I think that this passage is, yes, Matt.
Go ahead and finish your.
I was going to say, I don't think that this passage is forbidding us from judging. I think it's forbidding us from being hypocritical in our judgment. Yeah, Matt.
I was just going to say, society has a tendency to want to put sin on different levels. Like for me to tell a white lie,
right,
that's no big deal compared to this guy over here that's cheating on his wife. And it compares. I think people want to look at this passage when you point sin out in their life and say, the plank, yeah, I may be doing this, but look what you're doing. For me, I've always looked at it, the reason it's a plank in your own eye is because that's your sin. That's your life. So it's a much bigger deal to you because it's your sin. It's affecting you. It's what's keeping you from getting to heaven. Whereas, obviously someone else's sin is big to them, but in your eyes, it should be smaller than the sin you actually have in your life, because that should be your number one priority, is to take care of that. And so it's not that, this person was sinning more than the other person, and that's why they had a plank. It's because that's what's directly affecting them, and they need to take care of that before they look elsewhere.
Right. And I'll add to what you said, Matt. In order for us to be effective, and I don't think anybody likes to be, in charge of correcting others. But, each of us have a responsibility to our fellow man. That if we see them doing something that's going to keep them out of heaven, to at least try to reason with them. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But the important thing for us is for our influence not to be diminished. Because if we're in a situation where we're trying to admonish someone, do we ourselves need to be admonished? And you can see how quickly, and people are masters at spotting, as soon as you invoke the Bible on the topic, then the guns get turned on you. And I mean, if there is the smallest flaw that is known, you're going to hear about it, and your opportunity, your influence is just basically negates any good you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say. When you're correcting those that know, let's say before you were a Christian, and you're trying to teach those, about the correction, that's the first thing that they're going to bring up, and it's the things we've done in the past.
Oh yeah,
and that's, and it's like you were saying, when it comes to correcting people, you're right. The first thing we're going to look at is you did the same thing,
Right. Bernice?
I've had, people too also say, just in conversation and discussing something that's in the Bible, use that as an excuse that you're judging them no matter what you say to get out of whatever they're doing or you might be talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I know exactly what you're saying. I think that has been, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard that, you're not supposed to judge, you're not supposed to judge. That is, what that is a just profound ignorance to what it is. You got to call it what it is. Because if you spend any time in God's Word studying, first of all, you got to get yourself in a usable position for God to be effective. We just talked about that. So you got to get rid of the sin, the problems in your own life. And it's not that at that point you become, loaded for bear and you're just canvassing, looking for something to just, pile. That's not the way it works. That's not the way influence works. Because if you use the Bible like a club, you're going to have a hard time winning people. And that's what it's all about. It's not about scoring points. It's not about winning arguments. It's about, first of all, saving ourselves and as many people as we can. Because that's what's going on. We're in a world that is dying day by day. And the importance of each of us as we go about our daily affairs, just where we're at work, the grocery store, the stoplight, the parking lot, wherever we have a chance to have a positive influence, we've got to bear that in mind. And if there's anybody that needs to be told that anymore, it's me, because I have to every morning when I'm driving to work and I got a long drive. I have to constantly wrestle with myself about not being, critical of the people driving around me. Because really and truly, I'm no better. I just happen to be in a hurry, and so are they. So I have to be careful. And I wish I could say that I'm knocking it out of the park. Some days are better than others. But in the back of my mind, I have to remind myself that, I have got to present myself as a civil individual, first of all. And as I have opportunity to teach people, or just, I don't know, as you go about your daily lives, you're not going to really be able to have a 5, 10, or 15-minute discussion with people. But you never know. We're just looking for an opportunity where an act of kindness or just being a good, solid individual might create an opportunity. And that's what I hope for. Just an opportunity. If I can live in such a way that some doors get open, that would be great. I realize I'm taking a tangent here off the lesson, but it's all connected. Tony, do you have your okay. Oh, yes.
I got a dumb question.
No such thing.
Yes, it is. Now, understand what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Now, I know this for that. Now, there are two people. One is decided to go to church and stay in church, and the other likes to stay in the world. We have that. Yeah. And the one that stays in the church decides that they don't want to be bothered with one in the world, because one in the world got crazy, who rattle doing things wrong. So argument breaks out, and then one in the world doesn't want to have anything to do with the one in the church. Like, isn't that part of judgment? Because it's like you think you're better than somebody else because you stay over here, or you this, you that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you and I think that's a real danger. That it's easy to throw in the towel with a person in the world. but I think that's a mistake. Now, some people, they will not let you in their org where you can influence them. And there's not much you can do about that. I mean, if you want to try to reach somebody and try to do good by them, you have to, it's a dialogue. It's not, we're not walking around in the world imposing our point of view on people. What we're trying to do is to reason and get people to think about things and ultimately to think about their souls and their where's the end of the road. And I think a lot of people are just not looking. We're so immersed in the world that we live in and all the things that are coming at us all day long, and we lose sight of where does it end. And I think if you can get a person to just stop a moment and to think about that, where does it end? I'm sorry?
When they die from something, overdose or something.
Well, yeah. Now that is a different dynamic. That is a hard a thing to try to solve if a person is not willing. If there's a chemical dependency or something like that, that's going to involve more than just reasoning out. Because
they like that worldly thing. That's why they produce stuff over here with Jesus. They like to stay where Satan is.
Right. Well, that's true because it's easy to do that. Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
I think kind of along those lines, I think today the lines have kind of gotten grayed with what's judgment and what's just fact. You see somebody, like EJ was saying, if you've got a friend that you walk into their house and they're snorting cocaine off the table, and you say, hey, you shouldn't do that. Don't you judge me. Like, I'm not judging you. Like, it's like a fact. Like,
That's what I was talking about.
I literally just caught you doing this. And whether it's, and I know that's kind of an extreme situation, but it goes along. You catch somebody in a lie, you catch somebody running around on their spouse, getting drunk, whatever it may, breaking the law. I mean, it's just like if I'm speeding on my way home and a cop pulls me over and says, hey, you were speeding. Hey, don't you judge me. It's like he's not judging me. He's telling me, he's stating a fact. Now, for me to turn around, for him to say, you're going to kill somebody and here's what's going to happen to you because you're doing this, like that's judgment. He doesn't know that. And for me to turn around and say, hey, you're going to go to hell because of this, like that's passing judgment. It's like they could get forgiveness for that. They, like EJ was saying, they could come to church. People can be saved. There's nothing wrong with pointing out sin in somebody. That's not the thing. It's, the point is trying to get across here is not you can't point out sin in somebody's life. It's worry about yourself first. Make sure you're clear. And then, our job is to seek and save the lost. But it does no good for us to, if I bring 1 million people to Christ and they're all baptized, faithful, and go to heaven one day, but I've got this deep, dark, secret sin in my life that nobody knows about, in the end, it didn't do me any good. And so
True.
I think just a lot of people today, they want to blur the lines with what's judgment and what's fact, and they want to get onto you for kind of in a way to defend themselves for getting caught in sin or make themselves feel better or not as guilty as you can't judge me. It's like, not judging, but I literally just watched you do this sin. I know you're doing it. It's no secret. That's not judgment. It's just a fact.
I was going to say, I was taking it as when it's saying, like, say I'm saying I'm a Christian, but I'm with this person, and we out both partying in the club, and then I'm like preaching to them. In that kind of way, like, wait a minute, we was just partying together. Now you want to try to tell me about the Bible?
Right. No, a situation like that, you were like, your ability to have a godly influence becomes about zero. And I think that's a safe number. So yeah, but I don't, I understand what you're saying, Matt. I don't think that a person has to be caught doing something to be, we admonish our children. Don't get involved in certain activities. Stay away from drugs. Don't start families before you're ready to. those kind of things, because that's sound advice. It just is. And not to mention that sin is involved when you get involved in those activities. So, while it's true if you catch somebody, that's not a judgment. That is just, like Matt said, that's a fact. But still, God has given us His Word to judge certain situations, so we don't have to learn everything the hard way. And I think that's the blessing if we're wise. A wise person is going to look at the things that happen around them and are going to learn from that. I mean, I don't have to get hopelessly addicted to a drug to find out, drugs are bad. I don't have to do that, because I can look around and I can see that happening. And the same way, whether it's being in an adulterous relationship or fornication, all those things. Yes, please.
Well, some things that we experience, you have to be able to tell, like, if you just made a mistake in your life, like, I had some that I went, like, I would tell my son, this is what's going to happen. So, you know what I'm saying? You have to let them know because you experienced it.
Right.
Not so much that you're judging them,
Right. Well,
sure,
don't get me wrong.
Anybody can look at somebody and be like, well, you did this when you was, That's
right.
what I'm telling you.
Well, but the thing about it is, now, we've all done things in our past that are wrong, because every person has sinned. We know that. But it's important, you may have made a mistake along the way, and I may have made a mistake along the way. When people bring that up, what I can say is, you're right, I was involved in that, but I stopped doing that. I repented of it. I asked God to forgive me, and I trust that He has. And at that point in time, I ceased to do that. So that's no longer an obstacle, because I've been forgiven of that. And I've tried to live and order my life in such a way not to do that anymore. So, that gives me at that point, because I took the stand and I did what was necessary. And all I'm trying to do is appeal to that person to do the same thing. Just put this behind you. Because, we have no assurance of life from day to day. Life is fragile, it's precious, and it's fleeting. And so we can't get embroiled in what happened when you were a young person. All we can do is hope, in terms of the young, is that we can relate either the things we've observed or the things that we've experienced, in hopes that they will look at that and say, yeah, that's right, I do not want to let that happen to me. And if that happens and they avoid those things, then something good came of that. But the best thing that came of it is that you and me, we put that behind us, and we're not doing that anymore. And that's the important thing. Okay, so to get on with the lesson, we're looking at a series of passages, and the question says in the following passages, point out who was being rebuked and why. So, Ellen, if you don't mind, turn to Luke chapter 4 and read verses 5 through 8.
And he led him up and showed him all the kingdom of the world in a moment's time. And the devil said to him, I will give you all dominion and glory, for it has been told to me, and I will give it to whomever I will. Therefore, if you worship before me, you shall all be yours. And Jesus answered and said to him, it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God and serve him.
Okay, so the question is, who was being rebuked and why? The passage.
Well, Satan is being rebuked. He's being rebuked at the authority of Jesus and the Scriptures. All of these rebukes, this series of lessons, these temptations, we realize that we're ready to study these. Each authority of the Word of God to do that. So I think the idea of rebuking somebody, a lot of times has to do with where you're at. In a position of authority, or if you've got sound judgment, or if you've got the Word of God behind you. I don't think anybody really likes to get rebuked, but I have had it more than once. But having said that, it usually came from somebody in the heart. Something I said or I wanted to do. I got, no, that's not going to be there. That's not what I'm going to do. I think the military would be a pretty good example of what we're describing. Position of authority on the future people, but I'm sure that goes on all the time.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's an interesting example. Yeah, the military. There's a lot of rebuking that goes on there, right? But the point of that is to mold you into something cohesive and useful to you. I mean, I think we all understand that. You must have. You got people that actually lived it. I've just read about it, but I think I do have a pretty good understanding of it, just the same. But yes, I mean, we have Jesus rebuking the devil because the devil was tempting him. He was tempting God. But the interesting thing, along with the rebukes, are Jesus used the Word of God, just like we pointed out. And I think that that's the lesson for us when we confront things that we know that are wrong, that we leave our opinions, just leave them in our minds, focus on what God said. If we do that, then maybe we don't start letting our opinion kind of influence our rebuking. And I think that would be a mistake, and I think it would degrade our influence. And that's, to me, that's the key in all this discussion, is your influence. When people, they may not like you. They may ridicule you, they may scorn you, but in the backs of their minds, they have to accept the fact that you're walking the walk. And that makes your influence solid. And if you hear a lot about building the brand. That's what companies do. They want to build the brand. And that's what I want to do in my life. I'm a Christian, and I want to build that brand to the point where people that know me know this. They know because I've done that. And when I have an opportunity in that orb of people that are in my life space every day, if they all know that, and a subject comes up that's spiritual in nature, when I say something, it will give them pause to think. If I'm just reckless, can't control my tongue, participating in all whatever is going on, my influence is going to be not very much and probably be laughed off. But the opposite is true. If you're a solid individual, you're building your life on this, you have an opportunity to be an influence for good. A lot of people are not going to gravitate to it. I've lived my life and I've seen it happen lots of times. But there's always some that will. And that's what we're doing. We're just out here trying to reach those people who are really looking for God. And I know my thinking has changed so much in the last few years because I used to just think that there's just a small group of us out here that care and nobody else does. Now, that's the way I thought for a long time. But I see that isn't true. And it's taught me it's not a numbers game. It's a matter of living the life first and then teaching it. And just teaching it. Like the example of sowing the seed. That's what we do. We sow the seed and we hope that we come in contact with some good soil and bear fruit. That's our job. Okay. Next, the next verse, Hannah, we want to look at Luke chapter 7 and read verses 44 through 50.
Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house and gave you no water for my feet. She has washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but this woman has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little." And he said to her, "Your sins are forgiven." And those who sat at the table with him began to say to themselves, Who is this who even forgives sins?" And he said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace."
Okay. Now, who is doing the rebuking? Yep, Jesus again. Now, when I was trying to put down, in a simple sentence, why, and there may be people who disagree, but I'd like to come to better understand this passage. But I think Jesus was rebuking Simon's, maybe his lack of hospitality. That's even something that somebody would be rebuked for, but kind of standing back and looking at it, I think the rebuke is more along the lines of not seeing the value in what the woman did versus what he did, and really in their minds not thinking much about anybody. Everybody agree with me?
But since he was rebuking him because he thought Jesus didn't even know that she was a sinner. He knew how sinful she was. He wouldn't allow her to do it. So, anoint his feet with oil.
Anybody else? Like I said, I've read the passage. I know it's Jesus that's rebuking Simon. That much I know. But the why, I'm not so sure I got a good handle on it. Nancy, I can't say that I
Well, you said in verse 39, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, "This man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what man or woman this is who is touching him."
Okay, like I said, I'm not gonna take issue with it because it may very well be that could very well be the reason why he rebuked Simon. But then I'm trying to get an understanding of what is meant by the phrase. Therefore, I say to you, her sins are many and forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. So
don't ignore her. She had a lot of sins. Don't ignore her. Welcome her.
Well, but when I read that verse, she recognized. Of course, the woman recognized. She recognized a couple of things. She recognized her state, and she recognized who Jesus was. So that much I can glean from it. But are we talking about it was more important? Jesus, was he rebuking them because she recognized his greatness more than they did? Maybe that's, yeah.
I think you're probably most of it. Because said he was a Pharisee.
Right.
So the verses above that talks about, I don't know what we call confrontation. The Pharisees were looking at Jesus and trying to discredit him.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think this was a lesson for, not just for Simon, it was a lesson for both of the Pharisee and the Jewish hierarchy that rejected him. So I think the lesson was, the rebuke was extended beyond Simon. I think it was directed toward the Jews. Definitely Simon was rebuked for what he didn't do.
And here's the thing. We see this a lot with Jesus and his interaction with the Jewish people and the rulers. They, of all people, should have known. And I think they did know. But they had become so enamored with their own position and power. It's like the word said, that they were just looking for opportunities, to try to trap Jesus. And while this is probably not the best case for that argument in the story here, it's kind of a subtext, pretty much in all of these types of things. The Pharisees, the religious rulers, they, when Jesus knew their thoughts, he knew it. They had no advantage. And you would think that after a while they would have learned that, figured that out. But I guess I have the benefit of hindsight, which they did not. Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, if you read up at 40 and 41, he's giving the illustration about the two debtors. And if you have one that owes a whole lot of money and one that owes a little, who's going to be the most grateful after they've been forgiven? Simon says, he asked Simon, who do you think it's going to be? He said, well, the one that owed the most. Well, that's why he used the analogy then on the sinful woman and someone who didn't have as much sin. I was going to ask, I was going to ask the question, is that what it was? Kind of what Trey said, that I was going to say, was he trying to say that because this woman sinned more? So basically, a person that doesn't sin as much as another person, that doesn't necessarily mean that they appreciate Jesus as much.
I think that's the point. That's what I'm getting from all of this. In this particular example, anybody who's got anything other than that to add, by all means, EJ.
I was throwing this around. It's something that's not adding up to me. Okay. I know what's saying in 37, and I looked at 38, but then I'm looking at 39. It says, now when the Pharisees had saw it. In other words, to me, it sounded like he's seen what she was doing, and he's talking to Simon's talking to somebody, but throwing hints or going in planks again. If this man were a prophet, if he was a prophet, he didn't know that Jesus was deity. He already knew he was going to do this thing. But if he was a prophet, would he have known that she's a sinner? He's asking somebody else that question.
Right.
And he's trying to
I think that was a typical arrogant Pharisee thinking, thought. That's the way I see that. Because Jesus had demonstrated. Remember, these are people that have been immersed in Judaism. They've been trained. They've been taught the law. Been taught the prophecy and all of those things. Any people around that should have recognized, based on the things that they were seeing from the Lord do, would know that he is exactly who he claimed to be. But they just would not accept it. And I think this is another example. We see it's a kind of a common thread. Jesus, I can't think of a single time that he ever said to a Pharisee, you've got a great faith. Usually, it's the people, that the Pharisees looked down their noses at. Those were the ones that Jesus praised for their faith. And those are the ones that could recognize the value of the Lord, of his power, and of his deity. And this is a woman who, obviously crushed by the weight of her sin, and she just pours her heart out there at his feet. It's a beautiful story.
She knew him and she did what she did.
Right. So, we're reading this some 2,000 years later. In my mind, there was moral honor in that woman and the tears that she shed than those Pharisees.
She was sorry. She was sorry. It sounded like they were throwing the hints. If this was a prophet, yeah, that was that word right there. You should have known.
Well, personally, I think he probably did. It was just arrogant, just an arrogance of a Pharisee.
Just signifying like.
Right. Just sarcasm, basically, being sarcastic. How much time do we have?
3 or 4 minutes.
All right. Well, we'll do one more. Here I was thinking we were going to get through all of these. We didn't. But it doesn't matter. It's the quality of the discussion, right? Not the quantity. So, okay. Sandy, you want to read Luke 11:37 through 44, please?
And as he spoke, certain Pharisee asked him to dine with him, so he went in and sat down to eat. When the Pharisee saw it, he marveled that he had not first washed before dinner. Then the Lord said to him, Now you Pharisees think that outside of the cup is clean, but your inward part is full of greed and wickedness. Foolish ones, did not these means save the outside, make the inside also? But rather give alms of such things as you have, that indeed all things are clean to you. But woe to you, Pharisees! For you tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass by justice and the love of God. These you ought to have done without bidding the others undone. Woe to you, Pharisees, for you love the best seats in the synagogues and readings in the marketplaces. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like graves which are not seen, and the men who walk over them are not aware of them.
I love that. Lord, I tell you, when he hands out a rebuke, it's very good, very powerful. But I think, so Jesus was rebuking the Pharisees, and I had hypocrisy. When he's saying, woe, because they do all of these things that are small versus the weightier things like love and the love of God and justice. They seem to be a little light in those areas. So that's the last bell. I want to thank you for your participation. Hopefully it's been good for all of us to be here. Appreciate everybody's participation.
I like your shirt. Thank you.
I'm alright.
I like yours too. No, that's
Good evening. Good to see everyone out tonight. If you will, go ahead and mark your songbooks to 595. That'll be the song that we sing after the invitation. Now we will sing 870. I'm happy today. I'm happy today, oh yes, I'm happy today, in Jesus Christ. I'm happy today, because He's taken all my sins away, and that's why I'm happy today. I'm singing today, oh yes, I'm singing today, in Jesus Christ. I'm singing today, because He's taken all my sins away, and that's why I'm singing today. I'm praying today, oh yes, I'm praying today, in Jesus Christ. I'm praying today, because He's taken all my sins away, and that's why I'm praying today. I'm happy today, oh yes, I'm singing today, in Jesus Christ. I'm praying today, because He's taken all my sins away, and that's why I'm sharing today.
I invite you to take your Bibles out tonight and turn to John chapter 11. I'll be reading in John chapter 11, starting in verse 17. This is the account of the death of Lazarus. And I just want to highlight a few things about Christ in this passage. So starting in John 11, verse 17. It says, "Now when Jesus came, He found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met Him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, 'Lord, if You had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever You ask from God, God will give You.' Jesus said to her, 'Your brother will rise again.' Martha said to Him, 'I know that He will rise again in the resurrection on the last day.' Jesus said to her, 'I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in Me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in Me shall never die. Do you believe this?' She said to Him, 'Yes, Lord. I believe that You are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world.'" So from that passage, it starts what I want to talk about, and then it's three things that I want to talk about Christ. Number one, Christ has the authority. Number two, Christ has the power. Number three, Christ can give us life. So if you want to go down to John 11, starting in verse 38, I'm going to continue reading. It says there, "Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, 'Take away the stone.' Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to Him, 'Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days.' Jesus said to her, 'Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?' So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up His eyes and said, 'Father, I thank You, You have heard Me. I knew that You always hear Me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that You sent Me.' When He had said these things, He cried out with a loud voice, 'Lazarus, come out!' The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him, let him go." So from this passage, I think it very easily demonstrates those 3 points that I was talking about. Jesus commanded Lazarus to come out, and he did. So right there, all 3. He has the authority. He has the power. He didn't ask him to do it. He commanded Lazarus to come out. And he showed his power because Lazarus did come out. And finally, Jesus has the gift of life. In this passage specifically, he's talking about Lazarus coming back from the dead. But we also know that Christ has the gift of eternal life, and we can all have that gift. So I want to conclude tonight by saying if there's anything in your life that's hindering you from the gift of eternal life, we offer you this time to come forward and make your life right with God so that you can live eternally with Him.
Stand up for Jesus, He shoulders of the cross. Let find His royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, His army shall be lead, till every foe is vanquished, and Christ is Lord indeed. Stand up for Jesus, the trumpet call array, for to the mighty God, in this his glorious day, ye that are men shall serve Him against unnumbered foes. Let courage rise with danger, and strength to strength oppose. Stand up for Jesus, the strife will not be long. This day the noise of battle, the next a victor's song. To him that overcometh, a crown of life shall be. We with the King of glory shall reign eternally. Thanks, Justin, for the invitation, and Mark for filling in on teaching. It's good to see everyone out tonight. I did have a couple announcements that were brought to me. James Ashby's mom, I guess he left, I think, the other day and went down to stay with his mom. His mom's in pretty bad shape, so keep her in your prayers and him as well. And then also Brian Morris, he had a little operation today, or maybe not little, but had skin cancer taken off. But I guess he's doing better. So everything went well. Got it all out of there. Does anybody else? I know Chuck. Still thinking about him. He's coming back tomorrow. Go ahead, Mark.
We're going to be starting this Friday. We will be out of town visiting the eldest mother.
Keep them thoughts.
New duty roster posted behind the current line for July. So if you're going to be out of town, go ahead and take a look at that. And so we know this Sunday starts the new month, and then also Sunday starts the new teaching quarter. So if you're teaching third quarter, get your materials, be ready for that.
Try to do that. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll do our closing prayer.
Father, we come to you this evening thankful for this opportunity we've had to gather here, Father, in this place, to come away from the physical world, Father, and instead focus on you here at midweek. We're thankful, Father, for our teachers who were all well prepared today. We're thankful for the preparation they put in. Likewise, Father, we're thankful for Dustin for his invitation. I pray, Father, that we can recognize these truths about Jesus being found in your word. Pray, Father, that we can treat him with the reverence that we're supposed to, that we can understand the place that he rightfully has in our lives and ultimately in the world that we see around us and the world that we recognize is to come. We ask, Father, that you be with all of our members this evening, those who are here. You would also be with those who are away from us due to travels. Be with those, Father, who are away from us due to illness, that in all cases we might be able to safely rejoin that next meeting time we look forward to on Sunday morning. Father, we ask these things in your Son's name at this time.
Yeah, she'll be here. Okay.